Hello, welcome to our first Q&A video for our trip on the Empire State Trail. Today we're going to be covering the Erie Canalway portion of our ride, which was the 360 miles between Buffalo and Albany, New York. And we do have 3 videos on our trip between Buffalo and Albany, but there are probably some questions that came up if you are considering riding the trail, and this we thought would maybe be a good format to just briefly go over some general thoughts and feelings about the trail, and maybe answer some questions that you might have. So the first obvious question is going to be, can you describe the trail surface for the Erie Canalway Trail between Buffalo and Albany?
Thanks, Sarah. So that is for the most part, the trail surface is crushed gravel, limestone, very fine, very firm. Then there are paved sections, so it's just a mix of paved rail trail, crushed gravel, and then some paved roads.
Yeah, I would agree. So next question, it refers to, yeah, go ahead. I actually think it's your question for me.
It is. So is there a preferred direction of travel, Sarah?
This is a good one. We do get this question a bit. So most people would say, and I think we would agree, that the preferred direction would be west to east, Buffalo to Albany. And this would be to avoid the headwinds that you can get from Buffalo to about Newark while you're kind of below the lake area. So between that portion, that first third, or maybe 100, 120 miles of the trail, if you are riding toward the west in that portion, you will pretty consistently find a headwind. Whereas if you ride from west to east, then you avoid it. That being said, I don't think that you have to 100% avoid going towards Buffalo. If that logistically works out better for you, you're going to be fine. Just be conservative on those days, that last bit while you're riding on the trail where you're going to have that headwind. Know that it's there, but I think if you can go either way and have a choice, I would agree with the general perception that west to east is probably the easier one.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Let's see who's... Oh, yeah, I get a question again.
All right.
Let's see, where is your question?
Particular time of year to travel.
That is what it is, yes.
Yes.
So we traveled in September. The general trail season for the Erie Canal is after May 1st up to about October 1st. So anytime between May and October. You can ride later into October. You will find on the Lockport to Newark section, you might find some of the Trail Focus facilities are closing in October at different points. And certainly after the end of October, so November, December, January, February, March, would definitely be off season. And April's definitely shoulder season. The only caveat to the main on season between May and October, know that a lot of the, again, Erie Canalway Trail portion from Lockport to Newark is clear cut now, and you are along an active canal with water. So in the summer, it is very exposed. It can be very hot, and that water can reflect the sun. So be prepared for more sun than you might anticipate if you're riding that in the summer. But other than that, I think anywhere from May to the beginning part of October is fine.
Absolutely. Yeah. Gorgeous weather.
Yeah, we lucked out. Okay. So, Richard, how difficult would you say that this section was to ride, and who would you recommend it for?
I would absolutely say that it's very easy, beginner friendly. It's flat, not much elevation change until you get towards Albany. Would recommend that to beginners, intermediates, anybody that's just looking for a good time.
Or just wanting to ride their bike. But
Yes.
But yeah, no, I agree. I think
good time
anyone,
on your bike.
there you go. Yeah. I think it is appropriate for anyone. One thing to point out is that there is there's a couple of on-road sections and a longer on-road section, I think just after Utica. So in that last 2/3, it's a safe road section, but you are going to be riding in traffic. So the only type of rider I wouldn't recommend it to is someone who truly does not want to ride in traffic at all. There are short on-road portions where you're riding through traffic. If you are okay with that in a reasonable setting, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And those shoulders were fairly generous.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't feel like we were in danger during
No.
our trip on the Erie Canalway.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, this is up your alley. What type of bike would you recommend for someone that wants to ride the Erie Canalway Trail?
Well, given the elevation and the fine surfaces, I think that pretty much any bike is going to be great. I think a bike, a typical bicycle, modern road bike, gravel bike, hybrid, anything that can accept a nice wider tire, say 28 millimeters or larger, is going to be great. It's also very accessible to trikes and recumbents and hand cycles, probably. I mean, it is a very...
Do you need a mountain bike?
You don't need a mountain bike, but if you have slick tires and that's what you're used to riding, by all means, have fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Basically, you could probably ride almost anything.
Yeah, and you could ride it on a 23 mil, very narrow road tire, and you might love it. And, you know, it all comes down to comfort and what your expectations are.
Very true. All right, let me see. What is our
What is
next
your-
question?
Ooh.
Ooh, yes.
So, how easy is it to find water along the trail and amenities, services, that kind of stuff? That might be a 2 or 3 part question that I jumped ahead.
Well, I do tour planning, so this is definitely a question that I'm always considering when we're riding. So I would say that the Erie Canalway Trail has very frequent services. There are towns very close together, in some places just maybe 5 or 10 miles apart, maybe the longest section maybe 15 miles apart. You're definitely going to run into a gas station or a convenience store within 10 to 20 miles. So for me, that is frequent services. You're not going to be isolated to the point that you can't find food or that you really have to like stock up with a lot on you. Also towns where you can find lodging, again, fairly frequent. There's a portion in the middle between Palmyra and Weedsport. And then on to Syracuse, where there's not as many choices, and those are farther off the trail. But I would overall classify this as a trail that has frequent lodging options that are either on the trail or very accessible to the trail. There is camping allowed on the trail. In some places, that camping is very like exposed in public. So if you're at the locks, or if you are on the Erie Canalway, where you're in like a public park, or like Holly, where you're kind of at their like lock area, it's all primitive camping, so like no hookups or anything like that. But you're absolutely allowed to camp. Just know that, I mean, there's going to be people around. So that is not as frequent, or not as camp-like. It's more like you're just kind of out in your tent. In a park.
And it is tent camping. It's not like
camping.
on the Gap where you have shelters provided to you at the
yes.
campgrounds, that kind of stuff. So it is just tent
It's
camping.
just tent camping. That is true. Good point. And then we also did, however, want to mention the one thing that I found was not as frequent was water, but free water. So you can, at those convenience stores or in those towns, you can go in and buy, drinks, buy water. You can find the water, but for free water, there's just not trailheads the way I picture trailheads on like the Katy Trail, or on the Gap, where they have a set up bathroom and free water. You're going to find bathrooms in towns, again, in stores, and at the locks themselves. As you get in the second half of the trail, if you're going towards the east, you can get porta-johns at the locks. But the only place we really found free water was on the Erie Canalway Trail, the Lockport to Newark section, where they allow canal boats, recreational canal boats, to tie up in like a Spencerport or Holly or Brockport those locations all have free water spigots where the boats tie up. And we did talk to the Canal Corporation, and you are welcome to use that water and fill up your bottles at those locations. So that is free water that you may not be aware is there, but that was really it. I think so. Overall, very frequent services. You're not going to feel isolated. Good phone reception, all of that. The only weird thing was the water. Either bring enough with you, or no, you're just going to be buying some on the way. I think, yeah, for services.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Other questions for me?
How do people get to or start their ride along the trail, and how do they end it each day? And,
yeah. So like
you know,
logistics again.
logistics,
Yes, our trip planning side of things. So there are the best transportation options for the Buffalo to Albany section that are public transportation is going to be the train. You can take your bike on the train. It does run between Buffalo and Albany. You could also do car rentals at one end or the other. Those are both large cities, lots of car rental options. And then if you are with a group where you could leave a vehicle at both ends, you definitely can leave a vehicle in a parking garage, pay, of course, but like a paid parking garage at either end. There are not really shuttlers that will shuttle bike riders for the length of the entire trail. Having said that, there are two shuttlers who in the past have worked on a portion of the trail, usually around the Rochester and Syracuse section. So if you are only doing a portion of the trail, they may work for you. So their information and a lot of other resources you can find when you look up the Erie Canalway Trail with the New York State Parks website. They have a list of a lot of vendors that service the trail. So I don't want to say there's no shuttling, because he is a great shuttler and he'll do that work for you out of Rochester, but it's not going to be all the way to Albany. So there's no one that I know currently that is shuttling people the length of the trail. So if you do need to if you're doing the whole thing and you want to go from one end to the other, you're looking at someone's driving you, you're renting a car, or you're taking the train. I suppose you could fly.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure. Probably take a bus too.
Oh,
Trailways.
now you just messed up my
I
whole...
know.
Okay. Any other questions?
I don't have any other questions on here. Do you have questions for me?
I don't think that I do. I think that's it. So I think my last question is just going to be, what overall was your experience of the Erie Canalway Trail? What did you think?
I think the trail itself is fantastic. The surfaces, the terrain, the history along the trail, and just the land use. The western portion is very agricultural beyond Lockport. Lots of orchards and cabbage farms and cabbage fields. And then the eastern portion is more suburban-like and developed. And yeah. How about yourself?
I did like it. I have ridden we've both ridden the first western part up to Newark a couple of times before. So I'm familiar with that. And we know the places we like to go, like Pittsford Dairy, to get our snacks.
True.
But I did like the second half as well. And I really did like some of the more historic sites, like you were saying. The remains of the lock, so like the historic lock sites and places like the Schoharie site.
Yep.
So more
Fort Stanwix
and the Schenectady had a very nice historic district, which I really liked. So I enjoyed as well the historic side of that eastern portion of the trail. It's not a challenging trail in any way, but it's definitely one that you can just go along, and there's enough change up after the first 100 miles that it'll keep your interest, that it's fun to do. And if you've never done bike touring before, it's an easy one for someone to start out with, I think, for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah. So hopefully that helped to answer a few basic questions. If you haven't seen the videos that we did put together about our time on the Erie Canalway Trail between Buffalo to Albany, take a look at those. We are also going to do Q&A videos for our other series from the north to south part of the Empire State Trail. So you can see what we thought about that section of the Empire State Trail there. Other than that, I'll invite you to, if you enjoy any of our videos and want us to continue doing them on bike trails, please subscribe so we know that that's something that you're interested in, and we will keep doing them. And then last is go ahead, if you are interested in bike touring and trip planning, to visit our website at nobleinventionbiketouring.com or nibiketouring.com, and you can see more about our trip planning services. I think that's it. Thanks for answering all my questions.
Great job.
Good job. Bye.
See ya.